I'm a certified grief counselor, and so I've worked in healing centers. I continue to work with spiritual people. I pick a young student, male or female, and I go right up close to them and I say to them, if I hit you in the face and I hurt you and I make your nose bleed, and then I turn around and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Accept my apology. And some of them will, and some of them won't. And some of them will hate me for the rest of their lives. But then I hit you again, which is the story of the history of colonialization of this country. The churches have to acknowledge it, survivors have to acknowledge it, and then we get on.
We can't fix what was done. We can only fix going forward. We are in a fundamental relationship, the indigenous people of this country and the people who settled here. It's our primary relationship. We'll still be on this relationship 100 years from now. We can either have a dysfunctional relationship or we can build a positive relationship.
To me, that means forgiveness. So to be able to be forgiven as well as to forgive.
That you're able to just forgive someone and then be able to be okay with them and what they've done to you and be able to just move on from that.
I think that reconciliation for me means not so much anything coming from the First Nations, but it means an enormous amount that has to come from the non-First Nations. It means understanding. It means a willingness to work together.
An accountant will look at the balance sheets and he'll try to reconcile the assets and the liabilities, okay? That's another form of reconciliation. That's not what we're talking about here. Rather, we're talking about the reconciliation that needs to occur between peoples.
And so many of the things that we have heard about residential school, especially the sexual abuse, it is hard for those people to forgive. Words are not enough. You know, for somebody to say, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean anything unless you really take action.
Anybody can forgive somebody by a word, but if you don't have it in your heart, I mean, I can say I forgive you, but if it's not in my heart, it doesn't mean much.
We can have every policy you can think of. We can provide all the funding that we could possibly provide, but none of that means anything unless you have relationships with First Nations.
Things have to change. The status quo is not going to repair anything. It can no longer be that the Indigenous peoples of Canada are at the bottom end of every positive measure and at the top end of every negative measure.
The future is so important, and one thing that I didn't know is I didn't know how many opportunities and how many different paths we can take in this life, and it's unlimited. It's unlimited. And I feel like with reconciliation with all the other peoples of this world is so important, because we need to know what's outside this box that we live in. What's outside this country, what's outside our homes, what's outside our reservations. And with reconciliation, we will find that out.